before the blower goes on. I'm gonna need a bigger radiator. The drive shaft needs to be replaced, and I need to find a place to put the coolant reservoir because I'm gonna need the extra space between the meth tank and the tank for the cooler for the blower. So I'm gonna move a few things around. I'll show you what I picked up. We'll get the radiator in, the drive shaft in, and then we'll go for a drive and we'll see how much cooler the car is actually gonna run. All right, so here's everything I picked up. Now I decided to go with the 2-core Summit Racing radiator and a 4th gen Camaro stock aluminum drive shaft. On one of my other videos, I mentioned I was gonna get a Spawn Performance heavy duty drive shaft. I decided against that for now, just because I'm still running the stock 10 bolt and I'm not exactly sure if I'm gonna go with a 12 bolt or an 8.8. And depending on that, I'm pretty sure the drive shaft probably isn't gonna be exactly the same as with the 10 bolt. So I didn't wanna go and spend 400 bucks on a custom link drive shaft, change the rear later on, and then it's too short, too long, and I'm stuck with a custom paperweight. So for now, I got this thing off eBay, 120 bucks. It is used. These are way better than the 3rd gen ones though. They're a little bit stronger. They're about 5 pounds lighter because they are aluminum, but overall they're just balanced a lot better. I get this bad vibration like over 100. I'm pretty sure it's coming from the drive shaft because my seal is always leaking back here. This thing should fix my problem. It's the exact same length, so there shouldn't be any surprises putting it in. It'll just be a matter of swapping it out. I also went ahead and picked up a couple of reservoirs over here. I'm going to be installing a 4th gen Camaro overflow reservoir for the coolant. The reason I'm doing this is because where the factory one is now, I'm going to be installing this guy, which is also a coolant reservoir, but instead of using for coolant, I'm actually going to use this as my tank for the blower heat exchanger. So taking a closer look at the radiator, it is a 2-row, so pretty much meaning it's twice as wide as the 3rd gen radiator. They do sell a 3-core and I believe a 4-core. I think the 2-core is going to be plenty for me. It's supposed to be a direct fit replacement, which I know isn't going to be true just because it's so much wider, so the mounts on the top aren't going to fit with the stock 3rd gen upper radiator shroud. So I did go and pick up some different rubber isolators, and I'm going to have to make some kind of brackets just to hold the top in. But as far as width, it should fit no problem. The hoses are pretty much in the same spot as the 3rd gen stuff. Overflow fitting, radiator cap, all that stuff's good. The only other thing I'm kind of concerned about is how much further forward it's going to sit, being it is wider, because I do have the intake in the way. I am going to have that blower pulley coming off. With the fan and the shroud on here, that's going to stick even more forward, so I'm hoping I'm not going to hit the steering box. But one way to find out, we got to get it installed. So let's go ahead, pull the old drive shaft out, and then we'll move on to the radiator. So looking at the shafts side by side, you can see they're pretty much similar. They're the exact same length. The 4th gen shaft being a lot beefier than the 3rd gen. You can see the ends here, the yoke for the U-joint, it's a lot bigger than the steel 3rd gen one. And you can just see how pitted this thing is. Also, something I'm noticing here is the U-joints are in all right shape. There's definitely no play in them, but this back one here, it's binding up a little bit. I don't know if you could see that. It's kind of like sticky. It still moves, but it's pretty tight to turn. 4th gen one, I didn't change the U-joints, but the ones that are in here are good. They move a lot smoother, a lot less effort to turn them. Same thing with this one. So chances are this is probably where my problem was coming from with the vibration, because a binding U-joint is going to give you a vibration. So I'm pretty confident that this is going to fix my problem. So this should be a pretty nice upgrade. It's going to be lighter, it's going to be a little bit stronger. So I'm just going to go slip this back in the way I got it. Before I do that, I'm just going to pop in a new seal. shaft is in, but we just ran into a little bit of a problem. Being it's bigger than the old one, it's kind of rubbing on the exhaust just a little bit. Being I have this flex pipe here, it sticks out a little more, so it's rubbing pretty much on the flex pipe. But either way, the pipe's still pretty close. I'm hoping I can just kind of bend that hanger over this way and it's going to clear it. I'm going to try that first. If not, I'm going to have to think of something else. All right, good news, false alarm. What I was just showing you was with the rear end hanging down without the shocks hooked back up. So once I jack the rear up, put the shocks through, there is plenty of room and it is no longer rubbing. So we are good to go. I'm going to drop this thing down and then let's get started on that radiator. All right, before I get started, I just want to show you where my temperature is at right now, kind of what it does like in traffic or when on the highway. All right, I turned the engine off so you can hear me, but looking at the gauge, I'm running a stock 4th gen gauge cluster sender, so this gauge isn't accurate at all. But that line that it's sitting on right now, that, according to my scan tool, that's 205 degrees. When I first did the swap, I had 4th gen Camaro manifolds on it. I had a stock LS1 cam, an LS6 intake. It was pretty tame, and then I just had it tuned. I even had the stock truck head still on it. And running all the stock 3rd gen stuff with the LS1 fans, it would sit pretty much between the 100 and that line. I'm guessing it's about 180 degrees because the tuner has the fans coming on at 190 and then they would turn off at like 185. And over the years, since I did all the upgrades to it, it just started running like warmer and warmer, and the fans really can't keep the car cool. It's at the point now where the fans come on at 190 and they just stay on. They never turn off. Pretty much the fans come on like halfway between this mark, and then the temperature just keeps rising until it gets to that mark there, which is 205, and that's pretty much where it levels out. With the AC on, it was a totally different story. Once I had the AC on the highway in traffic, it didn't matter. It would just keep creeping past that line all the way up to 220, and it would keep going past that. Since I put the pusher fans in, it pretty much fixed that problem. In traffic, it still runs warmer than it used to. By no means is it running as cool as it used to, but it pretty much helps with the AC on. It doesn't get hotter and hotter. So they are helping. Just the fact that the engine's running a lot hotter than it used to and it's not coming down when the fans are coming on, I want to upgrade that radiator. I tried getting new fans before, that didn't do anything. The radiator is relatively new. It's a factory 3rd gen replacement radiator, nothing special. The only time I ever run into this problem is in the summertime. Any other season, the car's fine. It runs perfectly cool. The fans come on, they turn off how they're supposed to, but only in the summer it runs like way hotter. Temperature's not dropping and it's acting really stupid. So the blower's going on anyway. It's definitely a good idea to get a bigger radiator. But in addition to that, I'm also going to go and get another set of fans. eBay sells for 90 bucks. It's a whole shroud assembly with 2 fans. I'm sure the fans are probably junk, but I really want the shroud. I'll be able to bolt it to the radiator, get a really good seal for the air to get pulled through, and then I could just go and get like a good set of fans. So we got our reference temperature. That's where I'm sitting pretty much all the time. AC off, on the highway or in traffic. We're gonna put the new radiator in. I don't have the fans right now. I'm just gonna use the LS1 fans, and we're gonna see if we can get this needle to drop any with the bigger radiator. All right, so I got the radiator out. You guys see me take the fans out like 1,000 times by now. But here are the 2 radiators side by side, and you can see it's literally like twice the width of the 3rd gen radiator. Height's exactly the same. I don't think that's going to be a problem. Width is the same. The only thing I'm really seeing is the outlet on the bottom is a little bit taller. Hopefully that doesn't cause a problem. And then in addition to that, the hose at the top here is a lot longer for some reason. But worst case, I could probably just pull out the Sawzall and cut it down to this lip here, and that'll fit fine. So this is what I got. Straight from Summit, just radiator mount pads. I got 2 of them because I didn't know if I was going to need the top and the bottom. but I am gonna put these on the bottom as well. Probably gonna fit a little better than the stock stuff. So let's get this thing in the car, and we'll see what we have to do for the upper mounting. All right, so I got the radiator in, and fitment is pretty good. I went and put the rubber pieces down there. I actually had to cut longer ones just because the radiator is a little wide, and it's touching the lower support there, so I just cut it a little bit longer just so it hangs over, and it's not like metal to metal rubbing on the radiator. Same thing on this side. But it fits good. Height is perfect. It's pretty much just like the other radiator. Hoses are in the right spot. I could probably get this hose on here. If not, I'm gonna have to shorten this, as I said, but I think I'll be able to lube it up and just slide it all the way down without having to touch this. And then for the other side, I think it's also gonna be all right. I might have to shorten the hose, being it does sit more forward, being it's so much wider, but it looks like, yeah, it's definitely taller, because before the hose would sit pretty much where it is now, and now it's got to go up there, so I'm probably gonna have to shorten this hose just to make sure it doesn't kink. But the cover fits too. It just doesn't hold a radiator very well, being it's so much wider. You can see how much it sticks out, but I will be able to put this back over just to cover it up, clean it up. But for now, I'm gonna have to figure out a way to make a bracket system to hold this thing in place, keep it from wiggling around. But it is secured in here pretty well the way it is, just being in the lower support. So far fitment is pretty good. All right, so I got the top of the shroud in. It turns out I didn't even have to make anything custom. What I ended up doing, I used the stock plastic piece here, and then I used the Summit rubber mounts that I got. I just cut them a little bit longer, and I pulled out the factory 3rd gen mounts, and I just put that piece of rubber in here. And it's not like, you see it's sticking up, it's not perfectly flat, but with this tightened down, this radiator is really clamped down in those mounts, and it's not gonna go anywhere. So this actually works out pretty good. I'm gonna leave it like this for now. Now I just gotta see how the fans are gonna fit. The only thing I'm concerned about, as I said earlier, is the steering box, because you see the steering box is close to the radiator. I know when I get those, that eBay shroud I was telling you about, I'm gonna clear it, because the fans are in the middle here, and then all of this is just like a flat sheet metal, so I know it's gonna clear that, but I gotta see for now if the LS1 fans are gonna fit. Okay, so both hoses are on. Top one went on no problem. I just lubed it up a little bit, slipped it on. I didn't even bother cutting it, but I can take a little bit off if I need to. For the bottom, I just ended up cutting off this much just because it was too long. It was getting kinked by the thermostat, so that fits fine. I put the overflow on. Next step, we are going to drop the fans in, and hopefully they're going to clear the steering box. All right, so I got the fans in pretty much without a problem. They fit all right. Pretty much the way I always had this set up is the bottom lip of the fan shroud is pretty much sitting between the radiator and the lower support down there. So that's wedged between there, and then the top I just had like zip ties going through just to hold it up. For now, I did the same thing. I just got zip ties going through the top. This is not going anywhere. It's in there nice and tight. It's definitely tighter than it was before. The intake is pressing more on the upper hose. I could shorten this pipe here, and that's gonna allow me to pull this over so it's kind of straight. I'm just gonna leave it for now, just because this whole thing is going to be changed once the blower's on. The intake is going to be exiting out this way on an angle, so this whole thing has to go. I have to redesign a new intake. But the fans did fit. Like I said, I am switching them out. They're going to be low profile fans, so I'm going to have more room there. The motors aren't going to stick out as much. They didn't hit the steering box, which is good. So if you do want to use these fans, you can use the LS1 fans with this radiator. You could just see how much wider this is over the stock one. No doubt this thing is going to cool way better. But for right now, I'm just going to fill it up, bleed the air out, make sure the fans come on, and then we're going to come back tomorrow and we're going to put that reservoir in. All right, so it is the next day. The coolant is filled up. I am having a problem with my GoPro. For some reason, the lens is all like cloudy and messed up. so I'm not gonna be able to get some GoPro footage while I'm doing this. So I'm just gonna pull the battery out, cut to the tray, show you how the template's gonna be laid out, and then I'll cut the hole and come back and we'll see how the tank fits. So the next thing we're gonna be doing is installing the 4th gen coolant overflow tank. Now this is going to be going right over here underneath the battery. How it's set up in the 4th gens, the battery is going to sit in the tray on the top, and the whole bottom part of the reservoir is going to be hidden in the fender. And this is just going to allow me to get more space in the engine bay. It's going to eliminate this giant hideous tank here, and then I'm going to be installing this nice shiny aluminum piece, which I am going to be using as my water tank for the heat exchanger for the blower. I have this template here, which we're going to be using to cut the hole in the battery tray. I'm going to have to pull the battery out, lay this in the tray, mark it, cut it out, probably with a Sawzall or a Dremel. I'm going to leave a link to this template in the description so you could go and cut this out yourself. Printed this out off of thirdgen.org. I'm going to show you how to scale it up and print it out so it comes out this size, which is 1:1 to the actual size of the tank. All right, so I'm just going to show you guys quick how to make this template the right size, so it's like 1:1 with the actual size of the bottle. Here's the link to 3rd gen. I'm going to have in the description. You're just going to go download this one on the right here on a Mac, so I can really only show you what I'm doing here. I'm going to be using a Mac, but you're going to open it with Preview. You're going to want the toolbar up here, so Edit, View, Show Markup Bar, and then pretty much all you're going to do is crop this box right here. Crop. So that's pretty much like the size of a piece of paper now. Now we're going to want to scale this up so it's a size of the full sheet of paper. So we're just going to go to Adjust Size. And it's going to be, the width is going to be 11 because it's sideways, and the height, you want to turn off scale proportionally too, but the height is going to be 8.5. Hit OK. Now we go to File, Print. You can see it's the exact size of the page, and when it comes out, you're going to have that, and this is going to be what you're going to want to cut out and what we're going to be cutting through to make the hole for the bottle. I also have the AC vacuuming down on the outback over here. I had to replace the expansion valve yesterday because I had a problem with the suction. The low side was going into a vacuum and the high side was shooting all the way up to like 400 psi. So I'm pretty sure the expansion valve was stuck. So I replaced that. I have it vacuuming down, then I'm going to fill it up just in case you hear some vacuum pump noise in the background. All right, so I got the battery in the old overflow tank out. Now we're going to lay the template in there and make the cut. For anybody who never pulled this thing out before, this is a 92 tank. The 80s, the early to late 80s, I believe, uses a smaller tank that's pretty much the size of that one there. But if you never removed this before, pretty much there's a clip over here, and then the back of it, there's a 10mm nut with a stud that goes through the fender. I also went and cut my template down, cut some of the meat off of it, and you can see the way this is printed, it is the exact same size as the bottom of the tank. So once this is cut in the battery tray, the tank is going to slip through this template absolutely perfectly. And so my template's in place. This is where I'm going to make the cut. Now if you look at the tank, the way the bottom of it is pointing, it's not perfectly like parallel with the tray itself. So if you were going to put this thing in like facing perfectly straight with the fender, the whole tray is going to be turned, so it kind of has to be angled up where you're going to be making the cut, where the tank part is going to be sitting inside the fender. So that's what I did there. I have it just slightly pointing up that way, so when the tank is in there, you can see that the tray is sitting flat. It looks like it's going to clear the fender there and just sit in the opening. I might have to move the fuse assembly for the fans. I could just slide that up and move it over a little bit. That's not really a problem, but I'm pretty happy with where that's sitting. So I'm just going to mark this out with a Sharpie, and then we'll start cutting it out. All right, so I just finished cutting the hole. Get the template in, trace it out with the Sharpie, cut it out with a combination of the Sawzall and the angle grinder. Tank fits no problem, drops right into place. The only thing I do have to do is move the fuse holder for the fans. That's in the way. I'm gonna probably just slide it up, put it over here. That shouldn't be a problem. And then other than that, you just have to move the brace inside the fender. This piece down here, because the tank hangs down so much, it is hitting the brace. It's keeping it from going down far enough. So for now, I'm just gonna remove that. And then later on, I'm gonna try to relocate it. I can either move it a little further down or just pull it back this way and secure it in the back instead of going the front. And I'm sure that will work fine. So let's drop this thing in and we'll see how we can secure it. All right, so the tray is in. I moved the fuse holder for the fans up a little bit. That's out of the way. And then to secure it, I just used some long Tech screws and some washers. There was already a hole here, I guess how the factory mounts it. And I just put that straight through the frame. I put another one over here. I'm just gonna go and cut this out a little bit for the battery hold down, just so this is gonna sit flat over that screw, and then that's not gonna be a problem. I do have to just go and pick up a longer bolt. In order to get the bolt into the frame to actually hold the battery down, I think I'm just gonna drill a hole and put a nut through the bottom because I can access it through the fender. I might weld it. I'll probably just end up securing it for now, just with a nut and a lock washer. That'll keep the battery held down. I mean, it's really tight. It's not gonna go anywhere. For the actual hose, I think I'm going to go and pick up some 5/16 hose and just run it in here through the channel and over to the overflow. On the 4th gens, they actually have like an aluminum pipe going through here, and that's what seals it off. I didn't get that part because I bought this new from Amazon. But you can always pick that piece up if you want. I don't really have room to run the pipe out of here with the AC and everything in the way. So I think I'm gonna use this thicker hose and just kind of snug that in there. And I'm gonna step it down to a 5/16. Run that through and up to here. With the battery sitting on there, it's not going to leak or anything. Plus the coolant actually sits pretty far down in the reservoir. So I'm sure even with bumps and hard turns, I'm not going to have to worry about it leaking. All right guys, so the car is finished. I just came back from driving around for about 25 minutes. I did a few pulls, took it on the highway. Drive shaft feels absolutely perfect. I got it up to 50, maybe 55. Vibration's gone. So I'm pretty sure that's gonna fix the leak, but I'm gonna check back in a few days when I'm under the car doing the fuel system, just to make sure it's not leaking. But right now, it's time for a look at the temperature since I did the radiator. So I've been driving around for about 25 minutes. Right now, whole time was with AC. Right now, medium blower, AC on. Temperature is sitting at about 38, 39 degrees. It's 84 degrees out right now. It was a warm day today, warmest day I had yet since the AC has been working. And engine temperature wise, I'm sitting just below the 200 mark, which if you remember earlier in the video, we were pretty much right on that mark, maybe a little bit above it. That was with no AC on, with like 75 degrees outside. I do have that aftermarket shroud from eBay coming in. I think that's gonna cool even better, being the fans are gonna have a better connection to the radiator, so they're gonna pull more air through. So I'm gonna shut the car down, we're gonna go outside, and I'll show you how the bottle came out. I got the 4th gen reservoir in, I have my blower heat exchanger tank in, batteries all tied down. I even went and got a new air filter. What I ended up doing with the overflow hose, the 1/2-inch hose that I had was a little bit too small. It wasn't fitting in the hole very snug. So I ended up just using one 5/16 line, which is the factory size for the overflow on the 3rd gen radiator, and I just ran that under through the gap, and then I just squeezed a bunch of silicone right around where it goes into the tank, and I ran the hose all the way down to the bottomed out in the tank, and that sealed up the hole with the silicone around the top. Battery sitting over it, went, filled it up. See, you got this, and you can't see the tank. It uses like kind of like washer fluid dipstick kind of thing. But yeah, I'm really happy with the way this thing came out. This fits in here like absolutely perfectly. The battery is moved over a little bit. That does allow room for the spout over here. I am gonna go and get a little cap or something with a stud here. I don't want it arcing on there or anything. It's not going anywhere. It shouldn't rub into it or anything. To get this to fit, I did have to go and drill this out a little bit, make another hole, because the way they had it mounted before, it was kind of crooked and it looked weird. So I just drilled that out. I drilled the stock mounting holes out a tiny bit, and then I had these Subaru push pins, and I just popped them in there. For the actual hold down on the battery, got a really long bolt, drilled a hole in the battery tray, just fished that bolt all the way through, and underneath I put a nut and a lock washer on it. I didn't weld it in place, it's easy enough to get to, so if I ever had to take the battery out, I could just reach under there with a 1/2-inch wrench and just zip the top out. That's not gonna be a problem. And then for the brace, I just moved it over a little bit. Before, it was passing pretty much right underneath where the reservoir is. I took it off, I hammered it down a little bit, bent it up a little more, then I just slid it over and re-secured it. That's good. I made sure that the tire isn't going to hit it when it's at full lock. I got a few inches of room, so I don't think that's going to be a problem. And that's pretty much it. I mean, you saw when I installed the radiator yesterday, everything really went in without a problem. It fits great, you know, the height's perfect. I was even able to reuse the stock upper shroud, which I do want to do something about this. It's working for now. The radiator's not going to go anywhere. It's in there nice and tight, but I would like to dress it up a little bit. Maybe if I could find some kind of aluminum piece, or maybe get something stamped and just have it come over a 90-degree angle down, and that'll, I put my rubber mounts under there. That'll keep the radiator in place. It'll look a little better than this. I do have the other fans coming in, as I just mentioned, so that'll get rid of these zip ties, and the fans will actually be hard mounted to the radiator and probably provide a little more cooling, just because they're going to be sealed a lot better. And that's also going to allow me to get a little more room here for when the blower's on. I'll have more room for the intake. As for moving the intake, I am going to route it back through the hole there. I just have to get the blower on and then see what parts I have to order. I'm guessing I'm probably going to need a 45 off of this. I'll probably still have it come up above the hose, and then I'm just going to have it come over 90 degrees straight back down and put my filter underneath. I do have to go get another water sock for this. That's why my last filter was pretty gross, because the sock fell off and I never got another one. Also, I forgot to mention my last video. If you remember, I had the problem where the fuel pump kept turning off and I didn't know what it was, and I was going to change the pump, and then I ended up just cutting the connector out and bypassing it. But since I did that, haven't had a problem. Fuel pump's not turning off anymore. It's running fine, so it was that connector. But that whole wiring has to be changed when I redo the fuel pump anyway. I have to run a thicker gauge wire, because I did decide on going, instead of with the dual pumps, I'm going to do a Walboro 400. It's going to be plenty for the power I'm going for. But I am looking forward to getting the fuel system done. Next couple of videos, this blower is probably going on the car. If not the next video, the one after. I may just go and run the fuel lines first, just to see how they're going to fit. I still don't know where I'm going to put them. My first thought was to put them on the passenger side, kind of between the compressor and the accumulator here, just because on the car now, the input for the fuel line is on the other side. With the blower, it's at the back here, and then the Schrader valve I'm going to use for my return is going to be over here. So I kind of need everything on this side, but I just might go ahead and keep the feed on the driver's side, and then run the return on the other side where the accumulator and the AC is, just to split it up. It's going to allow me to have a little more room running the lines. Everything won't be so cramped together with all the fittings coming off the hard lines, turning into braided hose. But I do have everything I need for the fuel system, so that's ready to go. The only thing I got to do is order injectors, but I already have them picked out. If you have any questions about the build, feel free to put them in the comments. I do read all the comments. I reply to whatever I can. So any questions about the car, any videos you would like to see. I know a lot of people are requesting the roll cage and the interior. I haven't had time to do it. It is on the list. I will eventually get to it. I'm just getting so close to getting the blower on. I'm kind of just doing all the mechanical stuff. I got to see what's going on with the GoPro, because I do want to get some more driving clips of the car. I know between the roll cage and driving the car, those are like the two top things that you guys want to see. So once I get the GoPro situation figured out, I will be able to get some more driving clips. But I think that's going to do it for now. I'm working on the car pretty frequently, so you can expect the next video to be out within a couple of weeks, and that will be either the fuel system or the blower actually going on the car. And then from there, we'll be getting closer and closer to the tune date in the beginning of August. So I do plan on getting this build done very soon. But as always, if you don't follow me on Instagram, link is going to be in the description. I always post pictures of the build as I'm going along. I had pictures when I was doing the Reservoir, as well as when the radiator came in, and how it fit as soon as I installed it. So you just get like a sneak peek before the video comes out, and kind of get an idea of when the next one will be coming out, if I haven't uploaded something in a while. But if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.